Tony Kingston is marking 40 years with Northamptonshire County Cricket Club, an association dating back to his umpiring days with the County Colts side in the late 1970s. He is now into his 29th season as the county's first team scorer, and we recently caught up with him to reminisce about his life in cricket.
Kingo, 40 years involved with the club, and we'll come on to some of that in a moment, but your first taste of cricket at Wantage Road was an awful lot earlier than that, wasn't it?
It was 1948 when I attended nearby St Matthew's School. I'd been to the county ground the year before, January 1947, and if James Alexander Gordon had been about then, he would have said Northampton Town 1, Preston North End 2. And then I was bitten by the football bug, but cricket, I knew about Don Bradman, and I so wanted to see him that after school I popped up, but to my dismay, Bradman had rested himself and Lindsay Hassett was captain.
And you were here also 5 years later for the Aussies, which is supposedly the biggest ever attendance on this ground. And you had to fit that in, I think, with a bit of singing, wasn't it?
Yes, 1953. By then I'd been a member of St Matthew's Church Choir since 1947, and choir master, very strict, good for boys to be a member of a church choir. It teaches you discipline as well as singing. And the choir master said, "Now boys, we have 2 weddings on Saturday. Would you raise your hand if you can't come?" So I put my hand up and he said, "Tony, why can't you come?" So I said, "Well, Northants are playing the Australians." I said, I can't come to 2 weddings. He said, "If you value being a member of this church choir, you will come to the 2 weddings, get your 2 half-crowns pay," which was 12.5 pence a time in today's money, and then go to the cricket. So I did as he suggested, sang at the 2 weddings, Lead Us Heavenly Father, Lead Us and all that, and came along to the ground and came through the turnstile near the county tavern. And when I came in, as you said, one of the biggest crowds, well, the biggest crowd I can ever remember, must have been 20,000. All I could see was the top of the scoreboard, and it said 27 for 3. Now, me being a realist, I thought, well, Northants are batting. But when I finally got round to near the scoreboard and there was a gap in the crowd, I saw a couple of Northants fielders chasing the ball, and to my astonishment, and I said, "Oh, the Aussies are batting."
So one of the great opening spells, Frank Tyson, and you missed it.
I missed it, never mind.
Fast forward to 1978, and you were involved then with setting up or relaunching the Colts side, which had been moribund for a few seasons. How did that come about?
Well, it was because I knew Roy Wills. You know the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And Roy Wills had been charged by the old chief executive, Ken Turner, or the secretary of the club, Ken Turner, to resurrect the County Colts, which had been, they hadn't been playing for a few years. And I knew him, and Roy, one of the nicest chaps I ever knew, and a good sportsman. He's the only man I knew who had a trial at football for England schoolboys, at cricket, football and rugby. No disrespect to Ken Turner, Stephen Coverdale, Mark Tagg, David Smith or Ray Payne. In my opinion, he was the best chief executive Northants never had. He would have been brilliant, a brilliant administrator. But anyway, I knew him, and he said, because when I used to come to watch the county, people used to come and sit next to me to find out what was going on. I knew all the regs and the laws of cricket. No good at it, but I knew I knew all the regs and laws, and they said, "What's going on now then?" And I tried to explain, and he knew that I knew all the laws, and said, "Would you like to have a go?" As soon as I started umpiring the Colts, Lynn Wilson, who was then a member of our committee, he was heavily involved in Northampton Saints, and he said, "Could you come and umpire up the Saints on Sundays, and also midweek on Tuesdays when we play in the NCA Cup, like the forerunner of our 2020.
And being involved with the Colts at that time brought you into contact with some great players who became great players with Northamptonshire, the likes of Bailey and Capel and many others.
Yes. My job, besides umpiring on Saturdays, was to telephone through the score first thing on a Monday morning to the Chronicle and Echo. And I would say they got to know me on the sports desk, and I would say Colts 200 and ever so many for 3 or 4. Top scorers, please. So Bailey 80, Capel 64, Wild 52, something of that order. And they'd say, every week we ask you who the leading scorers are, and you say Bailey, Capel and Wild. Who, in your opinion, is the best of those 3? And I said, "Whoa, that's a good question. In my opinion, the most technically correct batsman of those 3 is Wild." Now, the other 2 played for England, and Wild retired early.
But they were all fine.
They were absolutely lovely chaps. And I never missed a Colts game, you know, from 78 to 83. 1983, we were at Wellingborough, and Roy, with his usual accuracy, said, "Same team next week, lads, meet at the county ground. We're playing at Redwell ground, Wellingborough again. Everybody all right?" And I said, "No, Roy, I can't come." And he said, "Oh, it must be something big on." He said, "I've never known you miss a game before." And he said, "Can I ask where you're going?" And all the lads cocked an ear to see where I was going. I said, "Barry Manilow open air concert at Blenheim Palace." Well, you've never seen the dressing room in such a state. They all fell about laughing, and
it's a very, very poor excuse for missing a cricket match. But a few years after that, then you started scoring, gave up the umpiring and started scoring, initially for the seconds, and I think that was down to Bob Carter.
It was. In the mid 1980s, I went to Thailand with Roy and his wife, and I got a nasty reaction to some malaria tablets. And by then, Roy had finished with the Colts. He finished in about 1983, and Bob Carter took over. And he used to visit in the winter. And at the end of the 1988 season, and before the start of the 89 season, he came and he said, "King, I've got the Colts fixtures, they're all ready to stand." And I daren't hardly tell him. I said, "Bob, I don't really think I'm up to standing out there from 1 o'clock lunchtime to 8 o'clock in the evening. I don't think I'm up to it." He said, "Oh, well, we don't want to lose you." He said, how about scoring for the seconds?" So I said, "No," I said, I don't want to elbow Len Onley out the way. And he said, "Oh, Len can't do it." He said, his waterworks are gone, he can't come away. He said, "You wouldn't be elbowing me out." He said, "You'd be helping me." So I said, "Well, with that proviso then, yes, I'd love to have a go." And I did 1 season, and then at the end of that season, which was season 89, just before the start of the 1990 season, the same thing happened. more or less, Bob came again and he said, Kingo, we're going to ask you to do the first team. The sec's going to ask you. That was Stephen Coverdale, very nice man. He said, Kingo, I've heard good reports of you with the second team. Can you do the first team for us? I said, well, what about Bernard Clark? I don't want to elbow him out the way. And he said, no, his wife's very poorly and he won't be able to do it. So I said, oh, okay then. And that's how it started. First year, 1990, we went to Lord's final and picked up the first of my medals. Shame it was a loser's medal.
2 years later, you got a winner's
2
one.
years later, we went back to London, stayed at Swiss Cottage, and everybody was there. We had a little team dinner, and the sec said, would you say grace, Kingo? I said grace, and I noticed that one of our number was absent. So I just said, for what we're about to receive, may the Lord make us truly thankful, and we think of those who should be with us but are not with us. Just then the door opened in this room, no word of a lie, the door opened and there was Curtly Ambrose. I'll be down in a minute, kid. And he got held up somewhere.
You've had obviously the pleasure of watching an awful lot of cricket, an awful lot of Northamptonshire cricket, but the actual practical business of scoring has changed a lot, because when you first started it was the book, and then of course a few years after that the advent of computer scoring. How easy did you find that transition? Because a lot of the older scorers certainly struggled and some actually gave up.
Well, first of all, in 1991 season, we trialled a thing called Broad System. That was a little computer, and as you said, some of the older chaps were a bit wary of it, but somehow we got through. And when I went to Derby for a Sunday League game, their old scorer, Stan Tacey, lovely man, he was worried about the computer, and he said, Kingo, will you do I can't do Derby accent, will you do the computer for me? So certainly Stan. And things were going along merrily until after tea, Northampton were batting and Derbyshire made their first bowling change, bringing on a slow bowler after the pace bowlers had gone off. And first ball of this slow bowler's over, umpire signalled wide ball, and Eldine Baptiste was at the crease, and he stepped out of his crease and the wicket-keeper whipped the bails off. So you had one umpire signalling wide ball, the other umpire giving Eldine Baptiste out. And I sat there for 10 minutes. Every time I put the wide in, it went on to the next delivery. I sat there for 10 minutes and Stan had told Broad Systems that I was going to do it. And after 10 minutes they rang and they said, Kingo, we haven't heard anything from you for 10 minutes. And I said, there's a jolly good reason. I said, I haven't sent you anything for 10 minutes. He said, well, is there a delay then? Are they off the field? I said, no, they're playing. So he said, oh, we must have it from you as it happens. And I said, and you will, as soon as you can tell me how to enter into the computer wide ball by the Derby bowler and the Northampton batsman, Eldine Baptiste, stumped off the wide. And he said, well, can that happen? So I said, yeah, it's just happened 10 minutes ago. And he said, does it happen often? I said, infrequently, but it can happen. So he said, our system will never cope with that. And I said, well, I regret to say your system isn't any good then. And then just before the 1993 season, along came Press Association and they delivered laptops to all the first team scorers. One of the early games was against Gloucestershire, and there was a big piece in what was called the Kettering Evening Telegraph with a photograph. I'll show you sometime. And it was saying now the Northampton scorer Tony Kingston seemed to be getting on with this press association system, unlike the Gloucestershire scorer, Bert Jenkins, a fine man, who hadn't even been told how to switch the laptop on.
One of the other huge changes in the time that you've been scoring, obviously, is 2020. Now, anybody that's ever tried to score a 2020 game, even at club level, as I have, will tell you that it's hard because everything happens so quickly. For you, doing it with all the various things that you have to do at county level, with umpires and walkie-talkies, it must be difficult.
I did wonder how we were. When it was first mooted, somebody at Lords said, "King, did you know we're going to start 2020 in 2003? We're going to play in the evenings." So I said, "What, like we've been doing at club cricket for years?" I said, "Only most of those games are 18 overs. We're going to play 20 overs, are we, a side?" So he said, "Yeah." So I said, "You all right with that?" So I said, "Oh, the thing that concerns me is in club cricket you're playing local." I said, "In county cricket, every county that we travel to is quite a distance, except for Leicestershire." And they said, "Well, you play local derbies." I think that first season we played 5 games. The first 3 were away. We went to Worcestershire, we went to Cardiff to play Glamorgan, and we went to Taunton to play Somerset, some local derbies. And by the time we got to a home game, we were really out of the competition. We had 2 to play, but we more or less couldn't qualify.
But it's fast and furious, but it's also given you the chance to be involved at finals days and winning more trophies for Northamptonshire.
Yes. Who'd have thought that? How exciting. That winning out of the blue to me seemed 2013, and then again 2016. How fantastic were they?
You've now been scorer, I think this is what, 29th season coming up?
29th season.
Underway now, of course, and Leo Bullimer did, what, about 35?
36, Leo.
Taking out the war years, 36 years. You're targeting Leo?
It'd be nice, but I don't want to talk religion to you, but it'd be nice. It isn't rocket science scoring, but you do need your health. So I just hope that I have the health to do it. What you may not remember, but when I first started, there were more local press. We had Chronicle and Echo, Evening Telegraph, and your good self. And on the first day, they said, "Could you give us a line for tonight's paper?" And I said, yes. I had done that 1 year in the seconds, and I'd seen the age of some of the first team scorers. And I said, "I'm going to be the longest serving scorer in the history of Northampton's cricket." I said, I'm the 7th one in the history of Northampton's. I said, "I'm going to be the longest serving." And one of them said, "Well, you've got to go. Some old Leo Bullimer did it for 51 years, which he did, but take the war years out of it, he did 36 years. And as you say, this is my 29th, so I've got some way to go."
But you still enjoy it?
Oh, it's for me, I love cricket. I mean, I love cricket. I played for St Matthew's Choir. We used to play other choirs in the town. I played for Technical High School. My big moment came when I joined the Roadmenders Youth Club. Now, we at Roadmender Youth Club, for 9p a week, you could do all sorts of things: cricket, football, canoe building. You could even do amateur dramatics. And I used to put my name down for all those things except the canoe building. And I became captain of the Roadmender youth team and we played youth teams of cricket clubs such as Valence, Old Northamptonians, Prims Excelsior, Primrose Hill, all those, and I was captain. I think I was only captain because I was the only one who had the kit. And when I was captain, it was no good saying, Johnny, would you go and stand at third man? I'd have to say, see that big tree? Go and stand just in front of that, would you, Johnny? And the other chap, I'd say, no good saying, go and stand at deep square leg. I said, you see the chap sitting under the sunshade? Go and stand in front of him. And I had 3 fantastic years as captain. And then, of course, I was called up for national service. And after training at Aldershot, I went to HQ London District, where they had a football and a cricket team. So I was in my glory. And they said, do you play cricket, Corporal? So I said, didn't tell them, that I hadn't played at a very high level. So would you like to have for us, a trial? So I went for a trial, and they said, yeah, you'll do, yeah, you'll do. And in the same team was then Captain R.I. Ferguson, Sarah Ferguson's dad. One of the nicest chaps I've ever met. The other officers were a bit standoffish because I was only a corporal, and I'm not saying they looked down their nose at me, but they didn't have a lot to do with me. But he was quite friendly. And he used to go all about London, Ealing, Acton, all places, playing cricket 1 day a week. I don't think they thought too much of it in the office where I was supposed to work. And then in the winter, I used to get 2 half days a week off to play football. And I even became captain of the HQ London District football team. It was fantastic for somebody. And then to be involved up here, it's been a wonderful life.